Good afternoon and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Winnipeg Food Council this Friday, September 20th, 2024. I'm Jason Schreier, City Council for Elmwood East Kildonan. I am this year's chair for the Winnipeg Food Council. We have with us members of the Winnipeg Food Council, as you'll get to see throughout the meeting. We have with us as well our clerk, Brendan Harris, committee clerk in the City Clerk's Department. Committee clerk, we have as well Danny Powell and Rusella Jabola, sustainability planners from the Water and Waste Department. I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Clerk Harris, do we have quorum?
We do have quorum.
All right, and where do we go from here?
So first we will need a motion to allow those on Zoom to participate remotely.
All right, would anybody, Martino, like to move that motion? Okay, motion is heard. Those in favor? Motion carries. Here we are, and great.
And then a motion to confirm the minutes of the last meeting.
All right, and we have motion. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none. Those in favor? Motion carries. And where do we go from here?
So we can start with report 1, the report from the chairperson.
All right. So my report will be brief. Other aspects of activities will be mentioned, I think, and maybe another report or two. In this case, I will simply mention the big deal for me, and this is sort of as the chair, because I heard it right here at our last meeting in a presentation given by Jennifer McRae from the Climate Action Committee. The Climate Change Connection. Thank you. The Climate Change Connection. I was hooked right away, and we are doing in Elmwood through the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation, as I hoped, what they are doing in Brandon, and also what Winnipeg Harvest is doing, and I understand another organization, community development organization in Transcona. And that is, as the city councilor, I'm going to be purchasing with award funds, two what I call them train cars. The names for them. They are 40-foot, 10 by 10 square, 40-foot long, climate controlled train cars. One will be a freezer, and the concept is one will be a freezer, the other one will be a refrigerator, and also for dried goods. Since Elmwood lost our last true grocery store just before that presentation on June 19th, we thought it'd be very apt. I did discuss with Leilani Liarba, the executive director of the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation. We have been working on this rather seriously since then, working with the Climate Change Connection and doing our due diligence, both doing a road trip to Brandon to see what they do there in conjunction with the John Howard Society is the benevolent legal association that's initiated it there in conjunction with sort of a downtown permanent farmers market in downtown Brandon. So it's been rather edifying and motivating, inspiring. So we're on our way to be doing that here. We've got our location at 243 Henderson, which is the corner of Henderson and Johnson. This is the location we had been working on for, well, a decade in terms of trying to make it useful for the community. It had been sitting there for a generation as a unused former gas station. And now we are making it work. And this is where we're going to place it. We also all have the three-phase electrical work that we need in order to power the freezer and refrigeration, the climate control of these train cars. And we're slowly on our way. It takes a while to get through the bureaucracy of making sure it's all done right. And we are doing it right. And hopefully, if all goes well, we'll have this done by November. And we will be a hub for other nonprofits and food organizations in Northeast Winnipeg, and we will go from there. There's more to say, and I'll give you updates as I go forward, but I just want you to know that is most, I don't know what to say. It's, is it exciting? Yeah, it's exciting, but for unfortunate reasons, but it is exciting. We're solving problems, and we're going to learn from this. and the other organizations, we're all going to learn together as we go forward. And I'm just very grateful to the Limited Food Council for having the expertise, for being the people that are interconnected and bring this forward to the Food Council. In this case, among the excellent delegations we've had here over the years, and excellent members of this committee. I was very grateful for this one in particular, and thank you, Dustin, for that suggestion. I'll leave it at there. Any questions? There's more to find out as we move forward. But if you do have other questions, you can certainly ask in Brandon through the John Howard Society and the organizations that they're involved with, and in which they do a very similar thing. The idea will be that we will, this is very important, as it was explained in the delegation by Jennifer McCrae last June, that we will be receiving at any time mass quantities from the major food chains. And as an example, 8 pallets, you can imagine 8 pallets of yogurt now, take it or leave it, kind of thing. And so we take it. So at any time, these climate controlled units can be full or empty. And we just gotta go with the flow. And that's how it works. And there will be numerous other organizations in our side, in our general region, that will be connected with. Includes the Elmo Community Resource Center. That includes Riverwood Church. They have a food program. That includes the Manitoba Métis Federation is moving in, including on Edison Avenue. And we've already been talking with them, which is not in my ward, but it's just further up Henderson Highway. And these are the types of organizations that we will be connecting with in order to create food efficiencies well, it's just one example of the term. And I guess that's a greater fill-in, so excuse me. That's what we will be doing. Thank you. Such as my report. I move my report.
Do you want to give away the chair to move your report,
sure.
or does someone else want to move to receive his info?
Anif, would you like to move that report? Great, fair enough. Those in favor, motion carries.
So report number 2, report from the coordinators.
Okay. So this report is going to be brief because most of what I'll be discussing in this report is an agenda item. So basically, the coordinator's report is all things that the coordinator has been up to from the last meeting up till now. We've had some community garden tours. We've worked on the Pro Bono Students Canada project. And we also started full-time the food waste program. That is the food waste reduction program that we do in association with the solid waste division within the city. So we had like a farmers market campaign. We also had some social media ads that's been going on and running concurrently with the farmers market campaign. Later on, also, we had several meetings with Jennifer McCrae with Climate Change Connections, which we'll talk about in regards to the pro bono students topic.
Hi, Ahmed.
Okay, and
Hold on.
is part of the is the city, which I'll be talking about later, is the City of Winnipeg Interim Compost Program. And I think from the coordinators, that's all.
So that is the coordinator's report for both of you? Okay.
Yes.
Any questions for our coordinator's report? Seeing none, thank you very much. Would someone like to move the report? Asha? Right, okay, any further discussion? Those in favor? Motion carries.
Up next, we have reports from the subcommittees.
Did you want me to go first for research and policy?
Whoever would like to go first.
I don't know who you have for the other one, but. So for the research and policy subcommittee, we last met earlier this week on the 16th.
we had some updates with regards to the Pro Bono Students Canada that Busola talked about in her report. And just to sort of expand on that, there has been sort of a pivot in terms of what Pro Bono Students Canada will be doing for us. And it's really going to be working in conjunction with some of the projects sort of underway in regards to the climate change connection project and storage containers and food rescue and that sort of thing. So they're going to be providing us with some research and literature regarding some of that. So doing some work there. Over the last, I guess, year or more, it has been the intent of the subcommittee to plan an in-person launch of the Food System Snapshot Report, mainly in conjunction with another community event. This spring, the Food Council did do a robust promotion of the report. They distributed the report to various community stakeholders, in addition to some social media and promotions on community or City of Winnipeg digital displays. So we did some of that promotion, and it was felt by the subcommittee that an in-person promotional event is really no longer required, and instead will pivot its focus on kind of looking at the report recommendations and how those recommendations can inform the committee actions or the Winnipeg Food Council annual work plans and possibly provide a mechanism for annual progress reporting. Lastly, one of our subcommittee members brought forward a discussion regarding an opportunity for funding through the local food infrastructure fund. And again, that can tie in to food security priorities and collaboration with climate change connection. So there's some work behind the scenes happening there. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions? We're moving towards the fastest meeting in the history of the Food Council, and given there's no delegation as well. All right, Martina, thank you very much. Would someone like to move Martina's report?
We'll take, if there's the report from the other subcommittee, we can take that first and move them together.
Unfortunately, the other subcommittee has not had the opportunity to meet since
Okay.
the last meeting, so.
Well, in that case, we can have a motion.
Okay. Would someone like to all right, Manas. Manas moves the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, so item 4 is the update on the proposal to repurpose the Roland Michener Arena for a year-round farmers market. We do have Bruce Pauls with us today. I will note Bruce has a submission and presentation for us. I will just need a motion to be able to have that displayed, just because it was received after the publishing of the agenda.
Sure. So we need a 2/3 motion. A 2/3.
Just to suspend the rules, yeah.
To suspend the rules. Dustin moves that motion to suspend the rules by 2/3 majority to allow for this update. And those in favor of adding to the agenda, those in favor, those opposed, sorry, Abby, are you opposed? I wasn't sure. It could be.
I'm not opposing. Sorry, there's a delay on my end.
Yes. Okay, fair enough, Abby. And all right, so we're good.
So much for the fastest meeting on that.
Oh, wow.
My apologies in advance.
Not at all.
I'm kidding, of course. I'll try to keep this brief. So my name is Bruce Pauls, and I am the architect for the City of Winnipeg. And you may be wondering, why is an architect presenting to the Food Council? Well, hopefully you're familiar with this proposal. Councillor Wyatt has suggested that the decommissioned Roland Michener Arena can actually be put to new use and good use as a permanent and year-round farmers market. So first off, I'm not going to assume that everyone here has been to this particular type of market, what Councillor Wyatt is suggesting. Oh, I'm sorry. I do need to start this show. What we're talking about here is more than a weekend market, more than temporary markets. We're talking about something that is bricks and mortar, indoors, year-round, climate-controlled, complete with food services, boutique vendors of arts and crafts, and all sorts of complementary items. Eventually, what you might see here is something along the lines of say, the Forks Market. The examples we're looking at here, the one on the left is Calgary, Calgary West, and on the right is St. Jacobs, Ontario. So with the right vision, sky's the limit, definitely something we can get excited about. The question is the old Roland Michener Arena the right venue for this sort of a venture? Everyone would like to see the building put to a good use. The city, well, I guess it has a number of good things going for it. Number one, it's available. It's been vacant since it was decommissioned about 10 years ago. The city has tried selling it. They have marketed it without success. But number two, it's a clear span structure that offers really great flexibility in terms of what you can do inside. And it's typical of our neighborhood arenas that were built in the 1960s. This era has left us with a number of these buildings with these exposed wood ceilings. This one happens to be in really still in really great shape. And now number three, the rest of the building is salvageable as well. It has good bones, as we like to say. But this is certainly much more than just unlocking the doors, turning on the lights, and opening a market. We don't want to give anyone the impression that we can just start using the building the way it is. So our study looked at a few different categories. Number one, we look at the condition of the building itself. And you have to remember that this is a 3-season building whose primary function was to prevent the ice from melting in January. So not really a lot of energy efficiency, not a lot of insulation, not a lot of.
Sorry, don't mean to be a nitpicker, but I used to play hockey in the summertime. The goal was to make sure that the ice didn't melt in the summer. You said winter.
Well,
but it's all year round. They never use this one as a winter.
Well, correct. But with the, I guess it sort of works both ways. In the winter, you want to let the cold air in and do most of that. Like right. You're not really then you're not spending money to keep the rink frozen, right? Yeah. Like a lot of these rinks, you go in there wearing your winter coat and your winter boots because it's going to be cold. But yes, you're right. Sorry for that. It's it certainly is possible to use the rink in the summer as well. So the building can be upgraded, but new lighting, new heating and cooling, ventilation, more efficient equipment, but it's still going to be expensive unless we do something to upgrade what we call the building envelope. And we have, obviously we have climate targets that we have to be aware of. We have, the city has a green building policy that we have to adhere to. So we also look at the building code. The building code's been updated several times since this building was constructed. And you might be thinking, okay, but it's an existing building. Can we not simply grandfather this building? And to an extent, in older buildings, yes, you can. In this case, you can't because it's changing use. It's going from an arena to a mercantile use. And that's why the building code looks at this as an all new building.
As a what, sorry?
As an all new building. Okay. So in practical terms, there's some major upgrades that would be required. We'd have to put in a sprinkler system. That's one of the big ticket items. And of course, accessibility has come a long way since the 1960s. We now accommodate people of all abilities and mobility levels. We don't ignore anyone. And when the city opens its doors to the public, we need to make sure that the building provides full access for everybody. Fortunately, it's a single-story building. You're looking at the main entrance where spectators and players would enter. At the opposite end, of course, this rink is level with grade, so there are opportunities to enter the building without encountering any steps or ramps. And we have to talk about the zoning bylaw and city planning. This isn't a parks and recreation property. It would need to be rezoned. It's not a big cost, but it does take time. And zoning requirements also mandate that the parking requirements are met on the site so that we don't flood the surrounding streets with traffic and parking. And so just looking at the location here, there is some, this is the zoning map. And what's outlined in yellow here is the land that would be available for parking if we sacrificed the old baseball diamond, which is still in use. You can see that a newer diamond was developed, but this one is still used for practice and little leaguers. So that's just one of the other hurdles that we had to deal with. So that's just a quick site plan showing how much parking is required. And in order to figure out what all this is going to cost, of course, we had to develop a concept. We had to develop something that would give us a realistic sense of what this would cost. So inside the building, we've conceived this fictional market. We've attempted to include everything that that entails: the food service vendors, the flexible merchandising space, modern washroom facilities, and so on. And in the end, we came up with a construction budget ranging from 4.5 to, sorry, that's covered on my screen. It's covered on yours as well. I believe it was 6.3. And adding contingencies, escalation, everything else, we're looking at 5.4 to 7.9. Now, just a really quick word about why is the range so big? Well, it's because number one, not everything that we have designed for is necessary to include. You can open this market without introducing new windows. You can open this market without introducing this outdoor seating area for the food vendors. So there are some discretionary costs. There are also some costs like the roof is still in serviceable condition. That doesn't have to be done right away either. So we're presenting this as a range, and we are confident. Like, this was prepared with the assistance of a professional quantity surveyor. So these are not my numbers. These are not just pulled out of thin air. There's quite a bit of design work backing this up, and we have independent third-party verification of these costs. So what is important to remember here, though, is this is an asset study. We're looking at the building, and we're looking at the capital cost to renovate that building. The missing piece for us right now is we don't really have an owner operator with a business plan telling us, yes, we need this, we don't need this, we want to do this. And that's really, that's where we're at. So this, you could consider this to be the first phase of this study, and that there can be future phases where with the assistance of an owner operator or someone with more experience running a farmer's market, we can certainly hone those numbers.
Any questions?
Questions on that?
Thank you for the presentation. I know it didn't happen last time. We ran out of time or something, but related to the feasibility study, was green infrastructure included in the considerations? And just looking at your site plans, I couldn't quite tell if there was any. Like, I didn't see, permeable pavements, community garden, rain garden, green energy considerations, and I don't know where that falls in within the plans.
Okay, so in terms, yes, this could certainly be permeable pavement here, because we wouldn't necessarily want to turn this into an asphalt parking lot. The city has enough of those. Yeah. It's certainly possible to consider that. We were hopeful that we might actually have room to introduce community gardens. The in the end, I mean, we're really too close to the soccer pitch and the baseball diamond here to really consider that in any sort of serious way, but it's not off the table. And I think that if I wanted to present a worst case scenario where we're showing, I think, 114 parking stalls in every project that I've been a part of, even going back to the private sector. Parking stalls are always negotiated with the zoning branch, and we would likely be looking at getting a variance so that we wouldn't have to include that many parking stalls, and that would free up some land for some of the more things like community gardens. Rainwater harvesting, yes, absolutely. There's an opportunity to do that here. These costs aren't specifically identified, but this is also not, this is what we call a class 4 estimate, right? So it's a feasibility study level estimate for sure.
So, yeah, like, just to elaborate, what goes on outside at a community market site is equally as important as what goes on inside.
Sure.
So the logistics of even receiving, let's say, 2 or 3 dozen businesses that have a trailer, the site would not accommodate it unless the street is blocked. The design just doesn't fit for trailers. Anyone who's driven a trailer in a parking lot with concrete obstructions, the trees will disappear. They will get squashed. So, looking at space considerations, what is appropriate for the space is to get the big equipment off the road, keep the cars on the road, right? You want to have an inviting space, someone who can come grab food, sit in the shade on a picnic bench next to green space, community garden, really be part of that feeling, that sense of community market. It has to be an inviting space, and currently, I would recommend that it be considered.
For sure. And that's exactly the sort of input that we're looking for. If this study does go to the next step, absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I have a question. I don't know if it's part of your plan, but do you plan to use like solar panels? Is it considered?
It's, well, not for any specific, use here, but, I mean, we have a large roof that would be ideally suited for that. If it's determined that, solar energy could run certain pumps or lighting, or, yeah, absolutely.
My understanding, given our latitude, I mean, there's places further north than us, like most of Northern Europe. I mean, London is at the same latitude as Thompson, is my understanding, but nonetheless, with our latitude, there are certain things we can do. I think lights can work okay. Certain things that are more mechanical and take more force, a little more difficult, I think, but interesting to see, as it continues to improve solar lighting and the batteries, what we can do.
What would it take for this to get moved to the next step?
I think it would take the commitment of someone who's going to pick it up and run with it and say, yes, I want to be here 24/7. I want to see a market succeed here, and I'm willing to put in the time and the effort, and somebody who has more than, I was going to say a vision, but we need more than a vision. Like right now, I think we have a vision. What we need is more of a concrete business plan, hours of operation, the actual content of the item that's going to be sold, somebody with the experience running farmers markets. And if a farmers market, like we've already heard some feedback that a farmers market is not likely to operate more than, say, 2 days a week, because a lot of your farmers are devoting their time to farming. Christy Schertzer was at the SPC. She appeared as delegation to the Standing Policy Committee. She made a number of great points. So, I mean, all that said, you know, it may not be a collective of independent farmers who sort of operate this on a daily basis. It may be a different model, and it just requires that someone who says, hey, this is a great idea, and if I can get in here for 5 million, I can make a real go of this, right?
Just two questions. So when you were showing like the pictures of the Calgary market and the one at
Right.
St. Jacobs, to your knowledge, like is there like an organization and or like the owner operator of those? Like how do they function? I'm curious. Are they city owned or
I don't believe they would be. I would have to look into that.
it'd be
more.
interesting to see what their model of like who's like operating it. Just to see how that would work.
As far as the reason I use St. Jacobs is, I mean, apparently it's the largest market of this kind in Canada, and just so happens I've been there a couple times. I mentioned that Christy Schertzer was here, and she mentioned that particular market is a resellers market. So when I'm strolling around and I'm seeing all the vegetables and fruits and meats, I'm assuming that these are the people who produce them. But she's saying, and maybe there is some of that, like that's what it looks like to me. Like it spills out of the building and there's a parking lot full of additional vendors. So I'm not 100% sure on how that works, but I thought it was worth noting that she said that is a centrally run resellers market.
Okay. And sort of my second part, in previous food council meetings, we've had individuals come and speak about sort of the lack of like a food production facility here in the city for local producers if they need to produce things from the things they grow and produce, and there isn't, and there has been talk about how to do that. I'm wondering if that was considered at all in these plans, because that could maybe offset, like if we can't have this running, you know, more than a couple of days a week, maybe if there is production facilities, like commercial production facilities, that can maybe offset some of that. I'm curious if that was all considered.
Well, no and yes. I don't want to say no. I mean, again, this is another piece that really would come to us from an owner operator sort of a mindset. I don't want to say that I'm just an architect, but I mean, I was asked to look at the building and you know, what would it take to get something up and running in here. So I've sort of patched together, but what I think based on these examples, I think in order to make it operate 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and throughout the year, obviously you're going to run out of fresh fruits and vegetables. And so the items like moccasins and scarves and the other arts and crafts, those are that's why I sort of introduced that sort of thing. And that's what you see in the St. Jacobs example here. Canned goods. But I mean, sorry, maybe I'm not answering your question. Are you suggesting commercial, like this would be propped up by commercial sellers, and you would have sort of those vendors? Like I don't want to use Tim Hortons, but you would have sort of permanent vendors in there who.
No, I'm kind of thinking more along the lines of, and I'm this is not my area of expertise, but say there is, somebody who wants to produce like a locally grown and made kimchi, for example. I'm just throwing that out, and they need a place to actually produce it because it needs to be like a commercially, like you can't just do this in your kitchen and then sell it. So that's what I was wondering, because I know there has been talk around this table. There's sort of that lack of You know, I know there's the Food Development Center, but I don't know if local producers have access to that outside in Portage. So yeah, I'm just curious about that kind of thing.
Yeah, the sort of the nuts and bolts of that, no, we didn't really get too far into that. Yeah, Asha?
Yeah, it's really cool to see an actual visual plan for what this space could be. Yeah, to Martina's point, I think I've worked kind of in the farmers market, small like food business world for a bit, and yeah, for the really small food vendors, I think what Martina's saying is correct, that like having a processing facility, like Transcona is a bit of a difficult place to get to, and I can imagine if like the processing or packaging or something was in that space already, it might help vendors out. Like it might make sense for them to both have a spot where they can sell their product as well as package and prepare. I know that's not currently part of the plans, and it would probably be an incredibly expensive thing to do, but I'm curious if talking to Food and Beverage Manitoba makes sense, because I know they've looked into that question of like shared processing and stuff. Again, I'm not sure what's possible with this space. So that just came to mind. Well, there's one more question I had. Oh yeah, I guess I saw that it went to, was it Standing Policy Committee last week? And I'm just curious if you have any updates on what came of that, or if there was at all a discussion about where this money would come from, or is it simply you're putting the plans out there and hoping someone would come up and finance this?
So yeah, sure. The discussion at Standing Policy Committee was mostly related to taking the building off the market. It's not being actively marketed right now, and there was some concern that, hey, we've done all this work. What happens now if someone comes along and says, I'd like to buy that, tear it down?
To be fair, that was the point of my presentation. I think capital was just to get it off the market to allow this to continue, whatever conclusion we come to. Yeah, I've got to take it off the market. Otherwise you could be deceiving private developers, and they're wasting their time and money by thinking this might be on the table for selling. Meanwhile, we're making plans ourselves. So that was the gist of my presentation. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I guess really when our report was submitted, we submitted it as the intent of the report was for the committee to receive it as information. We are not making a recommendation that we start renovations next month. This is, we were asked to investigate the feasibility. We feel like we've investigated that, put some numbers to it, and really it informs the next step of this investigation.
Now, sorry, Bruce, I made my presentation, sort of my main point is saying take it off the list of surplus assets so we can continue this. Otherwise, where are we? And that of course was part of the motion by my community committee back last year by Russ Wyatt. So can you tell me again, if you can explain to me, I'm looking through to the disposition, but sometimes it's hard to sort of understand and clarify. Could you tell us what transpired at the property planning and development meeting on this?
So I think you, and I apologize because I think I may have been out of the room when you made your presentation, and I think you were probably not in the room when this motion was being discussed. Councillor Allard was, I think he was rightfully concerned that, you had raised this point that we should probably rescind the declaration of it being a surplus building. And there was some discussion back and forth between Councillor Rollins and Allard. And I believe the way that conversation ended was that any activity on this building, if someone comes out of the woodwork and wishes to purchase that building, the public service would have to bring any type of an offer to purchase to the Standing Policy Committee for their review. So there would be an opportunity to say, we're not selling. And I maybe don't quote me on that. I believe that's the way that conversation ended.
Well, you were there to be quoted, your comments are on record, fair enough, but we understand that this person to further verify.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm
Thank
just
you.
saying it,
It's
Bob.
really not on you and
Yeah.
and it's really not on you to have to explain that that's not your role here, but thank you for your explanation to this point on this version. Okay. Any further questions for Bruce Pauls?
I think Manas.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Bruce, we are expecting as a city or whatever, so somebody out of the woods will come over and spend $5 million. And they will put a restriction on them that has to be a farmer's market or something in that choice. My understanding is clear, that's number one. And number two, did you guys, I mean, we have in the city, there's a number of other farmers market already. Did you guys consulted them that do we really need it? Or can we run it for 7 days? Can we run it for 5 days? Can we run it for 2 days? Is that a rightful venture for any investor even?
Okay, so I'll try and answer that first question. It's I have to be careful on what I say because I don't want to give anyone the impression that the building there is no sort of a price tag as far as I'm aware. When it was listed in the past, I would assume that there was a dollar figure attached to that. I think that the city would probably entertain proposals at this point, and it would be up to the respondents, the proponents, to identify what their contribution might be. Yes, with the stipulation that the building will be used for this purpose. I really don't, it would probably be expected that there would be some public money, or at least the asset itself might be made available at a heavy discount because of the work that it needs. That's just my take on it. With respect, yeah, you've raised a really good question though. With respect to can the city support additional farmers markets? That's one of those items that perhaps that's the next phase of the study. That's not related so much to the building itself. I mean, maybe this would provide a home for a number. I'm aware that there's already a farmers market operating in Transcona. And perhaps some of these smaller markets come together under one roof and consolidate in one larger market. People go to one place instead of multiple.
So one thing you mentioned, Bruce, is the idea that an incentive can be, if they're going to, for any prospective buyer of this building, is that the incentive would be they would get a really good price given all the work they have to do. That's kind of the main leverage we have here, is the incentive of getting a good price on this building with perceivedly notable value.
That's my, just based on experience, yes. When you have vacant buildings and you're looking for a new use, you're looking for creative proposals.
Thank you, Bruce. Any further questions or comments for our architect? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, Bruce. Any further comments? No, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. All right, well, that is the most substantive report we've had by for sure to date on this idea, which we've received. We first heard from Russ White, I believe, last fall. Was it last October? I think, and here we are 11 months later. This is the most substantive report. I'll also make the point that I did attend a meeting there a number of months ago. Was it around winter time? With numerous members, senior members of the administration, and yeah, it was quite the sight to see that many senior members of the administration take this seriously to get to this point, including the report, and to get this to standing committee at this time, and to have our report from our city's architect, Bruce Pauls, and thank you, Bruce. Didn't mean for you to sit down. That's all I meant to say, and thank you. Oh, Abby has a question or comment. Sorry,
I'm not sure if this is a comment related to related to the presentation, but it's just that an observation. When I used to work for community food center, was that there were lots of, I would say, local food producer or food what do you call this, a manufacturer, or those home based, I would say, food producer that will be always in need of commercial kitchens. But commercial kitchens are very expensive to rent, and if you're a startup, it can be a hindrance, right? And of course, you cannot use your home to prepare your food. And I feel like if we want to support entrepreneurs, and we would like to, I don't know, boom the market, Winnipeg market, to have more small business startups, I feel like as a city, we should support these people too as well. So I'm hoping that we can have commercial kitchens accessible, a little bit cheaper, I would say, for startup business. That's it.
So Abby, you're making the point about the potentiality of places like this, looking at this as a place for startup for kitchens.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they can consider that, like having a commercial kitchen that's rentable and affordable.
It's funny you should say that, because this place is so big that when you compare it to almost all other, because we're talking about a hockey arena, like a big hockey arena. So when you're talking about area and volume, this place has it. Comparing it to most other commercial industrial places, this place would have, it seems to me, could have room for that kind of stuff as well. It actually does. That's actually kind of a practical application. If you really want to, optimize this place to make it work the cost, you got to look at all the square footage, and this place has got a lot. It's a funny thing, because once you think about it, this place is gigantic, and stuff like that could help offset costs both ways, both for the city or whoever operates this, as well as for the startups. Actually, yeah, practical application, I'd say, just given the sheer surface area of this place, like the footprint, as and the volume. Yeah.
I'll just say it again, and I don't know who's taking this report any further, but I know that Food and Beverage Manitoba was looking at this question on shared packaging, having a space where food producers could have a commercial kitchen and do their processing. And this is maybe like a year or two ago, but I know they were like looking at spaces and things like that. So I just feel like they would be interested in this project, and I don't know where they're at with their own project on making like a shared packaging, shared processing space. But anyways.
That's why I love this community. Look at that. The people here are just the right people connected to sort of, because I'm going to be honest with you now. Now that this comes out, I'm going to be honest with you. The feasibility of this to me is questionable, because they're just trying to make use of this place because it is so big, therefore so expensive. And I'm wondering, do we have what it takes to make use of the space and make use of the cost? But the place is so big. Once you start talking like that, when you get serious commercial enterprises willing to be serious stakeholders and to share in this, that's what I really, right now, only know because of these two last comments. I can tell you, do I see the feasibility of this? Only because you share the space with people that are serious about what they do, making their businesses happen. So that is music to my ears. That's exactly what I think we had. But I'm just a layman here. And I'm just saying, bottom line matters all the time. And in this case, it does, and it does for everybody. So look at that. We already have people in this committee talking about how this connects us to food, business, and what I see is now I see potentiality. If we don't share in the space, if we don't share in the cost, I am. This is what we need to talk about. So thank you to Abby and Aisha. Is it Aisha or Asha? And I'm sorry for
Asha.
Asha. Excuse me, Asha. I'm not the only one to make a mistake, so I'm just saying. Okay, but anyway, thank you. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you. And yeah, and I'm gonna suggest to you, Bruce, that you take that home with you. The comments that you've just heard with these two good members of the Food Council who are talking about sharing the space. Because I swear, I don't see that. I don't see it possible without that kind of thought, that kind of action. So please take that with you, Paul, Bruce, to wherever you go. I would say, maybe you might, Asha, Abby, you might want to informally, because you've made your points on record, but you might have any further advice for, it happens to Bruce is the Johnny on the spot here from the administration, but he's got a specific thing here as the architect. He has his advice for us and things like this, but this is bigger than anybody here. This is bigger than Russ Wyatt. It's bigger than Bruce Paul, bigger than the Food Council, kind of thing. So, but if you might want to relay that information, where would you go from here, Brenda, in terms of getting those comments into the system to make sure that this is being considered? Because honestly, in all practicality, unless that's the kind of thing we're looking at, sharing, I don't see it.
So formally, I know this has been in front of the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development. I did pull up the motion. They are to be informed if there is any sale approval of the property as well. With respect to this committee's jurisdiction, anything that we were to recommend in addition to what the SPC would be doing would have to go through the Executive Policy Committee. In terms of if there were just discussions taking place at sort of the subcommittee level, that wouldn't necessarily need to be motioned in.
Okay, I just want to get that information, that advice, those insights, those connections into this project for any further discussion. To me, I'm going to say it again. Without that kind of thing, what are the chances of this thing happening? It is a matter of people need confidence. People need there's potential investment in this. So I see this as the only option of others feeding into this. They may not be the people buying it, but they're the people that are willing to rent from it. That kind of thing. It's rather common, but that's not common. I don't have that much experience. I just know more in developing countries. This is the kind of thing where businesses can latch onto. It can happen here too. Just in terms of making sure this excellent conversation continues as part of any further process. All right, I'll take care of it. But anyway, for the record, thank you for that. I'm glad we had this little chat. So thank you, Bruce Pauls. Any further questions or comments for Bruce? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you. Thank you. Would someone like to move his report? Martina, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, those in favor of passing his report as information, thank you very much. Abby and Asha, if you wouldn't mind sending me just a brief email, just what you said for the record on that, and I would gladly forward that on to those that would be involved in the sale or potential not sale of this, or as we move forward, just the potentiality of keeping this concept going. Dustin?
May I make a recommendation that everyone has a chance to provide comments to the coordinators and it's sent one time?
Great. Yes, who would like to move that motion? That's a great motion. Martina moves that motion. And Michaela seconds it, although we don't need a seconder, but that's the timing of being electronic. Anyway,
Just to be clear here, this is gonna be a motion separate and apart. So we would just need to move suspension of the rules to hear new business.
right, do we want to do that now? You're right, this is not part of the report, so no motion of the report. All right, so do we want to do that now or as an addendum at the end of the meeting?
It's truly up to the will of the committee.
All right, well, we'll move the motion now. We suspend the rules now to deal with this motion. Those in favor of suspending the rules to deal with Dustin's motion now? Okay, motion carries. Yes, motion carries. All right, go ahead with your report, Dustin. I mean, your motion.
And so on the spot, it's always difficult, but I simply just motion to provide time between now and the next food council meeting. Provide our comments regarding the feasibility study for the Mr. Arena to the coordinators and Winnipeg Food Council to then be submitted to the chair at the next food council meeting.
Chair and coordinators.
The coordinators would be collecting all of our comments and binding it all together.
Okay. All right, there's the motion. Motion is understood by the clerk. I'm going to make as comments. One thing I like about these is because when you think of hockey arenas, you think of ventilation. When you think of kitchens and commercial ovens, you think of ventilation kind of thing. So it's like, it's kind of, there's already a harmonious infrastructure kind of thing. So they already got those air pumps going and things like that. So that's how I think. It's kind of already lends itself because it's a place of climate control. So that's kind of fascinating. Anyway, that's my comment. Any further discussion on Dustin's motion? Seeing none, those in favor? All right, those opposed? Motion carries. Righto. So we're back to the original reports and we're at report item number 5.
Yes.
Okay, exploring revenue opportunities for Winnipeg Food Council. Take it away, Brendan. And yes.
I'll turn that over to the coordinators.
Yeah, so this was brought up at one of the full council meetings where Councillor Wyatt asked us to do a review of the Riverbank Management Committee, which we did. So the Riverbank Management Committee was the subcommittee that had worked cross-departmentally, largely under the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development. And the Riverbank Management Committee award grants every year for the past 12 years geared towards the stabilization of the riverbank. The yearly grant fund of $40,000 came from Waterway permits and was allocated to Festival de Voyageur. The funding mechanism for this grant, though impressive, it will not be a good fit for the Winnipeg Full Council, and this is because the council doesn't generate funds from levies or fines or permits. And that is our report on that.
All right. Thank you, Busola. So any questions or comments? So this is interesting for a few reasons. Now, I do not recall the context by which we made this motion before by Councillor Wyatt. Interesting that it has to do with the Food Council and has to do here with you were saying Riverbank.
Yeah, I can give you a little context. So
Yes, please.
basically, when we were talking about increasing the amount of money that was allocated for the Urban Agriculture Small Grants Program, Councillor Wyatt talked about how we could increase that, generate more revenue for funding instead of like making, raising motions to the EPC to increase the amount that was allocated for funding. So he suggested, like, why don't we find other streams we can get more funds for the Urban Agriculture Small Grants Program. And he said the Riverbank Management Committee had a very good system that was going on. So he said we should look into that. The coordinators should look into that to see if we can imitate what they were doing to generate more income for the Winnipeg Full Council in terms of increasing the funds that were allocated for the Urban Agriculture Small Grants Program. And so I spoke to one of the people in charge of this riverbank management, one of the coordinators. I can't remember his name right now. Yes. And he was the one that made me understand that this grant had been funded every year for 12 years, and the money generated from the funds went solely to Festival de Voyageur. And obviously, they were getting the money from the permits and the levies that were obtained from people that were doing the riverbank stabilization project. And so, when I looked into that, we don't have nobody pays permits or fines or levies to the Winnipeg Full Council presently for anything. So how would we be able to generate those funds to support that? And so this particular riverbank management committee wouldn't be a good fit for us to imitate. There might be others that we don't know about yet, I don't know, but this one wouldn't work for our circumstance.
Thank you, Busola. Any comments or questions for coordinators or for the report on this from our coordinator? Preston?
So in terms of those who receive the funding through our Urban Agriculture Small Grants Program, many do collect those levies and fees to have a plot at their community garden. Some don't, some do. The point being, it may not be our mechanism, but it's the mechanism that those we're funding.
Yeah, but who is in charge of, where do those levies go? It's not connected to the Winnipeg Full Council.
Correct, it's not connected. But the format for how funds are collected to support, say, a community garden, society, is that system. So I just want to make it fully understood, like the reason why we're not at all a fit, or just partially not the right fit.
Okay,
Yeah.
Partially not the right fit because the money doesn't trickle down back to us. Maybe if the funding trickled back down to us is something that we might have been able to do, but I don't know, the money doesn't come directly to the Winnipeg Full Council. I'm curious to know who is in charge of those levies and fines. I'll probably try to find out more.
And that's a requirement. Okay.
I'm going to make the point, when we're talking about the Riverbank and Food Council, I'm just going to say by my own experience as a city councilor and a previous community activist, I founded the West Kelowna Foot Patrol back in the year 2000. That's sort of futuristic back then. And since then, I do walk. I've had 4 incarnations of foot patrols, if you will, in my wards and select in the last decade. And I'll do whatever I can for them. Current one that I do walk with is the new Elmwood Unity Walk. But I'm going to tell you how things evolved. There's a difference between 24 years ago, and to date, we walk around West Kelowna and make sure everything's safe. In this day and age, what we figured out finally, because I found it hard to maintain a foot patrol back then. So I know how hard it is. I'll do anything for a foot patrol, anything, because I know it's so hard to sustain them. So we finally figured out feed the volunteers. So now part of my own reward allowance would feed the volunteers. But what the Unity Walk does today, we will provide some amount, not a lot, but some food and water to the people living along the riverbank in my neighborhood. And so I'm just going to make that point in terms of how sort of this issue of Food Council and Riverbank relates to what I do personally in my neighborhood, where I live, on my block, my street, right across the street, 5 minutes away. Is we literally provide food for the people living along the riverbank these days. And I'll just make that point here because I see that some sort of link there. Having said that, those are my comments. Any further questions or comments on this? Seeing none, would you like to move your report? Does the coordinator?
No, it would need to be a member.
Right. Michaela, would you like to move that report, please?
Michaela's indicated she had to.
And right, Michaela's no longer there. Okay, fair enough. All right, Manas, would you move that report?
Okay.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Busola. Here we are to report item 6.
That is the Pro Bono Students Canada research topics.
This agenda item was moved from the last meeting. And basically, at that time, we were trying to get research topics, because the pro bono coordinators had reached out to us to say that the last pro bono students had reached the end of their term and they needed to start a new project 2024-2025. And so we've had several meetings, and the research and policy subcommittee were very helpful in couching the project topic that we finally are going forward with. And so I think Martina spoke about that. The title is in support of Jennifer McRae's project in Climate Change Connections. So it's basically food rescue pilot with climate change connections. And I just wanted to say that basically what we want the pro bono students to do is we want them to do research and that would answer questions such as what municipal bylaws are engaged by placing storage containers on City of Winnipeg property, what zoning considerations must be considered when selecting an appropriate site, and are there potential liabilities under third law that should be considered for those involved once the sites are operational, things like that. And even though the pro bono students are not in charge of doing memorandums, but they would also be looking at what type of agreements would be between the food-based organizations that would be taking some of the food products from the storage containers. So those are just some of the research work they would be doing, because there is potential to scale up from the initial pilot phase and to get more containers. And so that's basically what the pro bono project is. And they have, the pro bono coordinators have recruited 2 students who are working with us, but we are yet to have the initial meetings to introduce them to the Winnipeg Food Council. And that's where we are with the pro bono Students Canada.
And where do these pro bono students come from, sorry?
They are first-year law students from the University of Manitoba.
Only when I think of law students do I see the word pro bono, whether it's for lawyers or law or students. Pro bono students could come from any faculty. Yet again, in this case, they do come from the law faculty of law. And must they come from the faculty of law? What is it about them that they have to come from the faculty of law as it
I think Pro Bono Students Canada is an organization that provides pro bono work for law students, so to build experience and their capacity of learning.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
That would make sense. It's not by virtue of the subject, it's by virtue of the source of the students. Fair enough. Yeah. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All right. And so when is this going to come back to us? What do we need to vote on today? What do we need to know? I mean, this is fascinating, but where do we go from here?
With the pro bono work?
Yeah. Like what happens
basically,
next?
right now we are in the process of working on the agreement. So there's a partner organization agreement, but we handle that within the Office of Sustainability. And we've already sent a request to the legal department. So they're working on that agreement. There's an agreement between us and the Pro Bono Students Canada. So basically, I don't think there's anything we need to vote on. I just want to put it out there as information just before they start working on the research topics. And from time to time, we will inform the Winnipeg Food Council of the process, the status of the work that they are doing. By next year, I think just before the summer, they would finish the work.
Okay. And so these contracts, you say, are they they're going to be
Like an agreement.
An agreement with the city's legal department?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And you'll give us like updates
Yes, and
monthly, quarterly, whatever arises.
yes, I also wanted to say that I noticed that for the last pro bono students who worked on the 2023-2024 project, Brendan has attached a copy of the report, a copy of their final work, which they came up with a brochure on urban agriculture in Winnipeg. It looks like this, but this is I just printed this for something else, which we'll talk about later. But basically, it's attached to the agenda, so you can see some of the work that they do. Yeah.
Okay, great. Oh, and just as an addendum, I guess I can add it here in terms of a comment to this. Make it work somehow in your own mind how this is justified and related, but Councillor Ross Edie and I did visit Aurora Farms in South Winnipeg there in St. Norbert this week, as a matter of fact, early this week, and I'd never been there before. And I'm not going to get further into it, but you might want to read up on Aurora Farms there in St. Norbert, just south of the perimeter. And fascinating place, putting yet again ideals into action, and fascinating. And thank you, Wasola, for that report. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, would someone like to move to receive the report as information? Is that correct, Brendan? Correct. Okay. Asha, would you like to move that report? Fair enough. Those in favor? All right, motion, those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Number 7.
That is the community garden tours and farmers market update.
Great. So just one item in our report, we said that September 18th, there was a visit to community gardens. That one didn't happen, unfortunately, but on August 28th, some members of the Winnipeg Food Council were joined by Councillor Ross Edie as we visited 2 of the garden projects the WFC funded in the 2024 round of the Urban Agriculture and Community Garden Grant. The first of these was the Rainbow Community Garden. It was run by the Refugee Immigrant Farming and Integration in Manitoba Incorporated, or RIFIM or RIFIM. They have sites near the University of Manitoba and also quite far down McPhillips, which is the one that we visited. They help hundreds of families, including immigrant and refugee families, to find a plot of land to grow their own vegetables, flowers, herbs, and medicines. And we were able to visit the McPhillips location. It was quite a large one. There's a number of acres of community garden plots with all manner of things growing. We were led through the garden by organizer Raymond Barboui, and that they had catastrophic field flooding in parts of their garden. And the parts of the garden were in fact underwater after seeding, and they were unusable in the spring. And so the grant from the council was used there to rescue those plots through the purchase and application of topsoil and some landscaping. So they were very appreciative of what the Food Council did for them. It was quite an impressive operation. We got to meet some of the farmers there, and they were kind enough to give us some little tours of their stuff. And their harvest had already started. It was just it was quite an experience. Lovely to see the action. The second garden we visited was at the North End Women's Center, Every Child That Matters Community Garden. The center's director, Stephanie Ross, showed us how the funds had allowed the center to place raised garden beds with foods, medicine, and herbs around for community use. This garden was planted with community-donated seeds and transplants. We were also treated to a tour of the rest of their garden area, where that provides food and medicine for clients of the center, as well as restful areas separated from city noise and summer heat, where they perform some of their programming. The work on this garden was accomplished with staff and community planting and caring for the garden, and the participants placed memorials to Indigenous victims of residential schools. So the tour really did show the importance and the potential of having these living and breathing parts of the city available for all residents, and how critical the funds that the Food Council distributes are to these operations. It's not a lot of money in terms of expenditures from a committee or from a city organization, but they have really disproportionately strong impacts. So I think it's a small grant does go a long way with these folks.
Thank you, Danny. Any questions or comments for Danny? I was as well was on this tour. Who was on the tour? Busola and yes, I had
Abby.
Abby, Martina, yeah. And these were two very different types of community gardens. One was on the very edge of the city, north near West St. Paul. It was large. We're talking at least a couple of acres, it seemed. And the plants were gigantic and people were coming out of the plants, and the plants were taller than we were. And then of course the one on Selkirk Avenue was very small and very urban and very different situation in terms of size and geography, demography, circumstances, and in a sense it couldn't have been more different. I just didn't think about that until sitting here. Boy, these are very different. But everything, of course, when we see these things, we see everything in between. So yeah, that was a good tour. And thank you. Who organized that?
That was us.
Yeah, thank you very much to our coordinators for organizing that great afternoon tour. And to see my fellow members of the committee there, thank you. Nice to see you outside of these rooms and outside the video. Great. Any further questions or comments? Busola.
Yeah, we just want to say that we tried to organize a second phase of this tour, but we've not been able to get consensus in terms of like trying to merge 2 or 3 community gardens, because we don't want to get some of the feedback we're getting from the gardens is that they don't have paid staff, and so we have to come after work. So some of them are saying 6:30, some of them are saying weekends. And so I just want to encourage members of the full council that if we are able to get other ones, I just wanted to ask if people would be interested in still going on one more before the end of the planting season. Danny has been sending emails, but sometimes we don't really get response. So we just want to know if we just want to encourage others that haven't been on the tour. It would be nice to see 1 or 2 people join. It's the second phase if it happens. We're still working on it and we're still talking to some of those farms. So.
Yeah, it's a good point. And trying to make everyone's schedules meet. It's hard enough to get quorum for food council and other committees. Let's face it. Nonetheless, it's nice, but it does work out. And thanks for your comments there, Busola. So you're asking us to consider weekends, you're saying? Yeah, fair enough.
No, weekend.
These are not weekends. Sorry.
Afterward.
Yeah, I'll put details in any emails I get from the garden saying that they're available, and hopefully we can get that going.
Do you need any further directive from the committee? Fair enough. So at this point, we'd just like to move the report. Information. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's a 2-part report. So the community gardens is one part and the farmers market is the other part. I just wanted to say something briefly about the farmers market campaign because we just received the final report from the summer student who is working, who was hired from Solid Waste Division and was working on the farmers market campaign. And so we'll have more information in the annual report about the farmers market campaign, but she was running social media ads as well. And she was posting dates for when she was visiting. So a brief summary will be that 8 markets were visited this year. She interacted with 335 residents. They came to the booth, spoke to her. We had some of our materials. So we had 3 materials from the Winnipeg Full Council. This is the handout from the food system snapshot. It was on the table in English and French. And then we had the urban agriculture on city lands brochure. And we had our famous bookmark, Winnipeg Full Council. And so the figures, statistics as to how many were received will be in the report as well. Raffle draws were also organized at the farmers market. I was able to visit one. I visited the Wolseley Farmers Market, and a lot of people were interested in food reduction tips, food waste. You know, there were other materials from solid waste. I only spoke about the material from the Winnipeg Food Council, but I would say that the residents that came to the booth, we weren't selling anything in particular, but people are very aware that a lot of food is being wasted in Winnipeg, and a lot of people actually want to make that change or to do better in terms of their food reduction practices. So I would say the farmers market campaign is still ongoing. Even though we might be ending our partnership with Love Food Hate Waste soon, but with the solid waste division, we're still working together. And there's a recommendation that we might need to buy a new tent because the tent that was being used broke. And so I don't know if the Winnipeg Food Council is open to having a tent that is branded both solid waste and Winnipeg Food Council. If we are, it would be nice.
How much is the tent?
I don't have the exact figure, but the proposal, the student looked at, which she also put an image, and I think she found this on Amazon. It's about $130.
How much?
$130. It's a.
You can make that application to me as the counselor.
It's okay.
I have no problem with that.
You do have a chair's account as
Oh, that's true. I always leave that to you guys. I've never used the chairs. It's true. Well, I mean, whatever. Okay, that's true. But all right, well, we can discuss that. Chair's account. I would make a motion of that's to the chair's
You don't need a
discretion.
motion for that.
Okay. Well, I'd be willing to look at that either as the chair or the city council. That's
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I mean,
on any?
on that, I'm not sure that the food council will be asked to pay for the tent. We may be asked to pay for our part of the branding, but that can be clarified later on, I think.
Well, I'll say for the record, and other members of the council can say what they wish on that. I'm willing to entertain using the chair's allowance for that. I think that's appropriate. Willing to weigh in from council members. Dustin.
Just a question to the coordinators. Has the design been sent by email for us to look at?
For the tent?
Yeah.
No. That's why I said the summer student just made a recommendation.
Okay, I thought there was a design.
No, there's no design yet because it's a makeshift. You know, it's what do you call it?
Pop-up.
A pop-up tent which you fold. So other recommendations are open. She just made a recommendation based on the research she did on like a good one, but like we haven't further discussed that.
Okay, yeah, as long as my recommendation would be just to share it amongst the food council members, just to have a look at it before.
And her recommendation is just the co-branding of.
No, getting a new tent because the old one broke, but that's against next year. The program is over this year, so we have some time to look at designs or recommendations or whatever, and then we can make a decision. She has finished the farmers market visits.
Do we need a motion on this in terms of that a type of dynamic of advice to be given by council to the coordinators? Is that what this is? Is that how we would perceive this? We need a motion?
I don't believe so. This is just information for the moment. There's no need for a decision on anything.
Yeah, fair enough. Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will make the point. In terms of this aspect of things, I had something to say regarding food in my area, but I guess I'll leave that for another time. Okay, so would someone like to move the report? Dustin, I wish to move this report. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor? And motion carries. And we're off now to to item number 8.
So that's the interim compost program to support food waste. So the city is launching the food waste drop-off stations across the city to collect residential food waste while we wait for the curbside green card program to launch in 2030. And so this interim program was approved by council summer of 2024, and it's supported through a partnership with Compost Winnipeg. The program will officially be announced September 29th, and sites will open October 15th. So residents have 2 weeks to gather waste before the official opening. And we just wanted you to know that the food waste page of the food waste page of our Winnipeg Food Council website would have some information about the program. So things like locations to drop off would also be added to that page. So we were just asked to notify members of the Winnipeg Food Council just as information.
Okay, fair enough. Who asked you to do that, sorry?
The solid waste division,
Okay,
because they are the ones in charge of the program.
okay, so they're asking you to promote that aspect?
No, just so that you know that the food waste page of the Winnipeg Food Council website would have some information about the interim, things like drop-off centers for the compost program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. And if I may, I forgot what I was going to say in the last report item regarding farmers market updates. I was merely going to say I've got 2 farmers markets essentially in my ward, and it was the last farmers market organized by the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation at Holy Eucharist Church Hall parking lot, and so I got a couple of my friends from Rockalypso who provided Caribbean music live as a trio for the last farmers market at Holy Eucharist. That was right. I forgot to mention that. But anyway, since we're talking about farmers markets, so that was our wind up.
Sorry, what's the name of the farmers market?
That one at Holy Eucharist, I believe. Well, it's organized by the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation, so it's the CNRC Farmers Market at Holy Eucharist Hall, at the corner of Monroe and Watt. Yeah. And during the by-election, I can attest that federal leader Jagmeet Singh did attend the Bronx Farmers Market last Saturday afternoon. And I believe that was the last one for Bronx Farmers Market, I believe, for the year. All right. So we move this report. Does anybody any further questions or comments? To move this report as information, interim compost program in support of to support food waste. Hanif would like to move that motion. Thank you. Those in any further discussion? Those in favor? Those opposed? I'm assuming Manaf, I'm just slow in the video, so I'm assuming Manas, you're not opposing the motion.
Yeah, no,
No, okay. Thank you, Manaf. Thank you. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Number 9, update on membership status.
So I've attached the status of everyone's membership. Just noting that you can serve 3 2-year terms. Your membership does not automatically renew. So if you are a member who started your current term in 2022, and you do want to continue serving on the Food Council, you will need to reapply. I will note that Abigail will not be able to reapply as she is currently in her 3rd term. To apply, you can just go to the Boards and Commissions page on the City Clerk's website, and you have until October 18th.
Abby, when is your last meeting with us? Oh,
I think today.
my
I
goodness.
think.
We do have one more meeting for the year,
Yeah.
scheduled
Okay.
for November 26th.
And that's okay, because the new one's coming up in the new year. All right, Abby, well, I look forward to seeing you then. I hope this doesn't trivialize things. Through different hairstyles is one way that I remember the evolution of Abby on seeing you at these meetings. So I would say that of myself, I would be envious of to be able to say that of myself. But anyway, Abby, Pleasure working with you over the years and we'll see you in November. So.
I love being here. So I'll call in November for sure.
Right on. That is our number 9 update on membership status. All right, that is understood by the committee. Would someone like to move that report? Abby, will you move that report? Sure, Abby moves that report. Any further questions or comments, any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. All right. And do we have any addendum items? Yes, there is an addendum item.
We've already handled
We've
that.
already handled that. Justin, anything else?
More of a question to the chair. Related to the local food infrastructure fund. We had, included in the subcommittee report, an intention to apply to the local food infrastructure fund. It's open for the month of October. That's for the small projects. It's between 25,000 and 100,000. I'm not sure the procedure if we need to request approval to apply for a federally funded program. It lists municipal administrations as eligible.
All right. Well, this is an important issue before we close up for the day. Don't want to waste anybody's time, but this sounds kind of important. We're talking about a local food infrastructure fund. It's a federal fund. It's open in October for funds for projects between 15 to 100,000, you said?
25,000 to 100,000.
25 to 100,000.
If it includes food processing, I'll give you the breakdown here. Just quickly, equipment to process, distribute, store, and or transport food is eligible only when the project includes a food production element. There's 2 angles to look at, but my question here is, should we be delegating this to a subcommittee or should we just proceed? Just curious to know what the procedure would be.
Well, the way I see it is because our next meeting is going to be after October, therefore, what immediately occurred to me as you're speaking is to delegate a subcommittee.
Yeah.
So I think we're on the same page. Brendan, what do you think of that?
I am just checking procedurally
Yeah.
on what's required there. If you could just bear with me one moment.
And for further context, the conversation at the Research and Policy Subcommittee was to proceed, but to first have this conversation, get approval from the Winnipeg Food Council. And one option in consideration is to apply for funding in partnership with Climate Change Connections, with Jennifer McRae, to expand upon the number of cooler, freezer, storage pods or trains, or however you.
I call them the train cars because they're literally made and designed in part and parcel of the international shipping, container shipping logistics kind of thing. So they're essentially train cars. You can stack them on each other, one over the other, on a train car, on a railway. And that's why I call them that. So you're thinking in terms of where else this can be applied in the city kind of thing?
I mean, that's what sort of the work of the subcommittee could work on in terms of the application process, the logistics, the budgetary, essentially just looking for permission to proceed and apply and just the standard request.
What further discussion do we have of this? So do we have a motion for the clerk?
I wouldn't mind just taking a brief recess just to make sure that procedurally we are proceeding.
And we have till 2:00 is our sort of our timeline here.
There is no set timeline. I don't anticipate this would take more than a couple of minutes.
Okay, great. I say we have a recess so our good clerk can verify this as it applies to the motion. Great. I'll take a short recess. Right, we are back from the recess of the Winnipeg Food Council, September 20th, 2024. I would like to request a motion to suspend the rules to by 2/3 majority to allow for an addendum report item. A motion, and Dustin moves that motion. Those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Now we have a new motion on the floor. Dustin, will you, or that motion is already understood by the clerk?
It is understood by the
Which
clerk.
is to read this motion for the committee.
So it's going to be to request the Executive Policy Committee allow the Winnipeg Food Council to submit an application for the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada Local Food Infrastructure Fund small scale projects to be directed to support the improvement of community food security in keeping with the eligibility requirements of the program.
All right, that is understood by the clerk. Is it understood by the original mover of the motion?
Yes.
Dustin Hoff. All right. And now, of course, we're all listening to this. Is there any further discussion by members of the committee? Seeing none. Those in favor? Those opposed? And motion carries. There we go. Clerk Harris, is there anything further of us?
That is all that has been brought to my attention, so we can take a motion
Once
to adjourn.
again, thank you very much to our members of the committee for their wisdom, insights, and their professionals and their connectivity. That brings for a rather wholesome meeting. Thank you. A motion to adjourn. I see that, and we are adjourned. Thank you, merci miigwech.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. You run.